Bluegrass Jam Along is proud to be sponsored by Collins Guitars and Mandolins, each and every one built from the sound up in Austin, Texas. This episode is also brought to you by Peghead Nation, the home of roots music instruction. If you want to improve your playing, join me and thousands of other pickers getting better every day at pegheadnation.com. Hi, this is Matt, and you're listening to Bluegrass Jam Along, the podcast for anyone and everyone who loves bluegrass. Hey everybody, welcome back to another week of Bluegrass Jam Along. This is your Bluegrass Briefing for Monday the 29th of July 2024. And as I'm going to keep pointing out for a while now, you just heard my brand new theme tune by Bryan Sutton. What a great thing, I love it. There's going to be a bit of pod news actually. This might be a slightly Bluegrass Jam Along heavy edition of the Bluegrass Briefing, and I apologise in advance for that, sort of, but sort of not as well. There's just been quite a lot going on. It's been a very, very cool week, and the first thing was that the new theme that Bryan wrote and arranged and played and recorded and produced went on the podcast for the first time on Monday last week on the briefing. I also added it to everything else last week. There was a couple of extra bits last week. And so I also reposted an interview I did with Happy Tram, who passed away a couple of weeks ago, and just put that back out to celebrate Happy's legacy, because I had such a cool chat with him and some really interesting stuff came out of that. And I just wanted to share that for those of you who'd missed it, just as a chance to sort of celebrate Happy and his legacy and his work. So that's on the podcast, if you missed that. Also, there was a really interesting interview with Alistair Atkin of Atkin Guitars, chatting about making vintage sounding and looking instruments, but using modern techniques. And yeah, their guitars are incredible, and that was a really cool chat. I really enjoyed that one. Do go and check that out if you didn't hear it. And so that was a pretty cool start to the week, straight off, having the new theme tune and the interview with Atkin. And then on Wednesday, I saw a post on Instagram saying that I'd been shortlisted for Broadcaster of the Year at IBMA. I was at IBMA last year, where I was lucky enough to win the Momentum Industry Award, and this year I am in the shortlist of 5 for Broadcaster of the Year. So yeah, a new theme tune and an award nomination. It's been an extraordinary week, and I've very much enjoyed it. So thank you to everybody who kind of has contributed to this podcast being what it is. I love it. I don't need awards to keep making it, but I'd love to win one. Who wouldn't? And then the other thing from last week is on Friday, I'm just going to start surfacing some of the backing tracks again. Doing a thing called Fiddle Tune Friday, where I'll just, on social channels, will just post a link to one of the backing tracks, just to put a different fiddle tune every week. Just there's so many episodes out now and so many things on the podcast that some of the backing tracks particularly get a bit lost. I'm sort of toying with the idea of bringing some more backing tracks back, so do let me know. Let me know if you want them or not. But I haven't done any for quite a while. I think Temperance Reel might have been the last, and they were a really integral part of the podcast when I started. That was what I was doing, and the interviews have just sort of taken over. But I wondered about whether doing a sort of month of interviews and then maybe the last week of the month doing a tune every month, just to keep adding things to that, because I know people are still downloading the old ones and using them. If you have an opinion, let me know, matt@bluegrassjamalong.com. There's also a link in every podcast show note description where you can send me a message if you want to let me know, or find me on social media. Come and tell me. I would love to hear what people think. This podcast only exists when people listen to it, so it'd be cool to hear what you like. But that's sort of my recap. There's been quite a lot going on this week. It's been an amazing week, and cracking on. I didn't manage to get an interview recorded last week, but hopefully I've got at least one to record this week, potentially 2, so I'm going to hope to get something out later this week, but I don't know yet. I will do my best, and you will find out whether I do or not later in the week. But that is it for this bit. Let's crack on with the news and announcements, which is Church Street News. And the main bit of news, in fact probably the only bit of news this week, is the IBMA Industry Awards were announced, the nominees. And as I said, I am up for Broadcast of the Year, which is very cool indeed. I'm very excited about that. event of the year, Dock at 100. Obviously chatted to Jack Hinchelwood and Ted Olson and various people about Dock at 100 last year. And that's up for event of the year, as is Bluegrass in La Roche. So congratulations to Christopher Howard Williams for making that list. I've not been to it, but it sounds like such a cool event. Other things, Songwriter of the Year, shortlist was announced. Sound Engineer, some of the sort of more behind the scenes stuff, which is really cool stuff. Writer of the Year, Bill Ametnik, is up for that, for his book about Tony Rice that I interviewed him about on the podcast. Photographer of the Year, I think, is a new category, and that's really cool because particularly in this day and age where so much of how we interact with the bands we love is on social media. Like photos are a big thing. It's not just about a photo for the album cover, or we see so many different promo shots of people, and it's a really interesting time to be a music photographer. And so that's a really cool award. Looking forward to seeing what happens with that one. Graphic Designer of the Year, again, another really important behind the scenes job. It's great to see these things being celebrated. And Liner Notes of the Year, Ted Olson. If you remember, I interviewed Martin Simpson and Tom Yutz about Nothing But Green Willow, the songs of Mary Sands and Jane Gentry, which is a great album. Also has beautiful packaging and some really extensive, thoughtful, interesting sleeve notes by Ted Olson, who's been a guest on the podcast a couple of times now. So yeah, really interesting. I love seeing all that stuff. It's the sort of Guitarist of the Year, Band of the Year, all that stuff is really exciting, and that's sort of glitzy and glamorous, but it's really nice to see things like the Momentum Awards and the Industry Awards and see kind of what else is going on too, and what we may be seeing more of in the years to come, and all the people playing a part in keeping this music in front of everyone. So yeah, really excited, and I'm very much looking forward to going out to IBMA in September. I've just booked my hotel, just need to book myself a flight. If you're going, let me know. Shout at me, tell me. I'll no doubt see some of you there anyway. But yeah, drop me a message and let me know if you're going to be there, and I will try and meet as many of you as I can. Next bit is The Grass is New. And there's one thing new this week. When I interviewed Brittany Haas on the podcast pretty recently about joining Punch Brothers, she mentioned to me there was some more music coming from Hawktail, and it is in the form of an album called Vasen and Hawktail, which is due on Padiddle Records, which is the label that Paul Coet runs, on September the 20th. I'm never quite sure if I'm pronouncing Vasen correctly. I'm pronouncing it that way. That's so tell me if I'm wrong. But they have a new record coming out in September, and there's a track called Hawk Ale from that, which is now out on the streaming services. So I've added that to the Grass is Mostly New podcast. I'm really keen to hear a bit more about that. Vasen's one of those bands that I've heard a lot about, but I haven't really dug into their stuff yet, and this will be a good starting point for me. As always, anything that Hawktail do is interesting. I love Hawktail. So yeah, that is the new release for this week. And that is it, really. It's a bit of a brief briefing. Not a huge amount of extra news at this point. As I say, I'm going to try and get an episode out this week. So yeah, keep an eye on the social channels, and I'll post there if and when. Otherwise, I've got 3 or 4 things lined up that are all really cool, and they're all coming. So if I don't get something out this week, I do apologise. But there is plenty more good content coming. Final thing is what to say. So if you enjoy Bluegrass Jam Along, I try not to kind of push things too hard in terms of like asking you to do anything, but if you enjoy Bluegrass Jam Along, one thing you can do if you want to support the podcast is you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts for a very small amount of money, which will mean you get to listen to everything without the ads on it, and will just help support me keeping this going. But I'm totally down with the idea that people listen to podcasts and don't pay. I do that. We'll do that. It's the way it works. If you don't want to do that, I would love it if you would just share an episode with a friend. Just pick an episode that you've enjoyed, send a link, stick it in a Facebook group you're in, tell people at the jam session you go to, message it to a friend who you think might enjoy it. Word of mouth and just spreading this through people who like it is the best way of doing these things, I think. That's where I get my favourite recommendations for things from. So yeah, if you enjoy Bluegrass Jam Along, just tell somebody. That's all I'm asking you to do. That's it. All the usual stuff applies. There is everything at bluegrassjamalong.com. All the tracks, you can speed them up and slow them down. All the interviews, stuff is... I've started adding some categories now. So if you go to the interviews, you can click on guitar or mandolin, or, if you click on one of the categories, it'll take you to all the guitar episodes, all the related ones and things like that. I'm still building that out, so there's a bit more stuff to do on that, but I'm starting to collect things together a bit better, just to hope to resurface some of the stuff that's in the back catalogue. And the final thing is, with the chord charts, there's now also a PDF where you can download them all in one go, which is really cool. So that is it. Have a great week. I will see you when I see you, and happy picking. Bluegrass Jam Along is proud to be sponsored by Collings Guitars and Mandolins, making some of the finest guitars and mandolins in the world since the 1970s. Visit collingsguitars.com and find out why.